Hello everyone, I'm Sheldon Baker, editor for Innovision Health Media and your host for Healthy Bytes. Joining me today is Ashley Koff, a registered dietitian and a pioneering voice behind the emerging weight health movement. Ashley is the USA Today best-selling author of Your Best Shot and founder of the Better Nutrition Program, a practitioner and thought leader with more than 25 years of experience. She's helped redefine the approach weight, shifting the conversation from weight loss to weight health, a science-based framework based on metabolic function, hormonal regulation, and sustainable outcomes. Through her work with patients, clinicians, and leading brands and other companies, as well as health organizations, Ashley has developed practical systems that translate complex nutrition science into personalized strategies people can actually understand and implement. Ashley continues to lead a growing movement toward better health that supports long-term metabolic and weight health. And Ashley, welcome.
Thanks so much for having me, Sheldon.
So weight health versus weight and weight loss, take us down that road.
Yeah, I think we've gone down the weight loss road. Oh, have we gone down it? You know, whether it's something you personally have dealt with at any point in your life or whether it's something you've watched others, weight loss as an approach has really been very disempowering to people. You know, it's also been rooted in the wrong premise that diet and exercise alone are what helps your body run better, and in running better has the right body composition. And the final piece is that when we do diet, we very often actually make things worse. We take a body that was suboptimally resourced and we reduce resources even further. So my work has really been looking at how do we help somebody with what the goal is. And the goal of weight health is to say that I want my body, an operating system, to operate optimally as long as I'm gifted, you know, for the time that I'm here, noting there are going to be times where there are challenges, and when those challenges occur, as early as possible, I want to be able to see the signals that my body is sharing with me and decode them. And the reason I kept the word weight in weight health as opposed to optimal health or health span or anything else like that is I think it's important for us to recognize that our body's weight, which is made up of bone, muscle, fat, and water, is each of those, the type, the amount, the location, they're actually giving us very clear signals about what's happening with the body. So I'll share this analogy with you and see if it lands, Sheldon. If you woke up, you go outside to get in your car, and you go to start your car, and the car doesn't start. But you know that there is gas in the tank. You know there's oil in the engine, air in the tires. You turn around, and you don't go and eliminate those and say, hey, let me just try to reduce the gas. Maybe if I reduce the gas or if I add more air to the already full tires, it will start. No, you look under the hood, right? You decode the signals at maybe the dashboard light, or if you actually know what's going on under the hood, you look at the spark plugs or you look at other things. So for me, weight health is the look under the hood side of it. And weight loss has been the, let's just play with different versions of gas, air, and oil. Yeah.
Let's face it, a large percentage of people in the U.S. are obese. What in your mind has led to this epidemic?
Yeah, obesity is not a great definition of anything. So when we take our total weight and we measure it against our height, we get a number called body mass index, and BMI that's body mass index, has been used to determine who is subnormal, who's normal, who's overweight, and who's obese. But the reality is that if I went out to the NBA fields, the NBA court or the NFL field, and I used BMI, we wouldn't have pro athletes, right? We would not have them on, we wouldn't be able to like even have two teams playing against each other. We're using the wrong data. So obesity, interestingly, at about 40% for adults right now, you know, sort of hovering in that range, 2023, 2024. Okay, I don't want to turn around and say we don't have a problem with excess fat, or we don't have a problem with bone loss, or we don't have a problem with suboptimal muscle amount, but 9 in 10 Americans don't meet the criteria for metabolic health. 9 in 10 Americans. So where I'm focused on is, yes, I will look at what your body is telling me in terms of fat, muscle, bone, and water, but I'm really looking at 9 in 10 of us. Basically, all of us are battling metabolic health. That's where we should be focusing, because when we focus on weight loss, we have what we have now. We have GLP-1 agonists, the new, medications that they have tremendous amount of value, and I'll come back to that, but they're being deemed a weight loss win. Like they're like, we are going to no longer have obesity. We can put anyone on this and they lose weight. And we're judging their success based on percentage of weight loss. But then we see people who are losing weight who have worsening metabolic health or not improved metabolic health. Now, in some instances, GLP-1 agonists are being used properly and they're improving all of that. And we might see that 9 out of 10 become 5 out of 10 because of that, but not if we focus on just weight loss and the total number on the scale. So the most important thing that I say to anybody who is addressing obese patients or is diagnosing someone as obese or who has been told that they're obese is that's not helpful data. Let's actually assess and get the helpful data. How is your digestion? What is your body composition showing us? What are your labs telling us about your cardiometabolic status? How's your breathing? How do you feel around eating? And then certainly, I think I mentioned at the beginning if I didn't, but how's your digestive health? Because that's going to affect all of it. That data is actually going to tell me what we need to do to help you achieve optimal health on that part.
So now many people have turned to GLP-1 for getting thin and healthy. There are concerns. We often hear about GLP medications being valid. What's your take on it?
Yeah, so and I love when somebody is turning to them to get healthy. I have less of that. I have a lot of people from a thinness standpoint or people where they're being prescribed just surely for weight loss or for optimizing blood sugar. So if we back up for a second, our own bodies all have weight health hormones. They're made in the lining of our digestive tract. GLP-1, GLP-2, GIP, PYY, CCK. These are peptide hormones, and they regulate a lot of things. They tell other hormones, leptin, which deals with satiety and fullness, insulin and glucagon, which deals with how our body uses our blood sugar, those hormones. There are receptor sites on our bone. So GLP-1 and GIP tell the body to form bone and prevent and turn off bone resorption. There are receptor sites for these hormones in the lining of our arteries, so in the endothelial tissue. So they impact blood pressure and blood flow and the integrity of our arteries, where we know calcium calcium plaque formation can occur. And they also impact other things in the digestive system, and we can go on from there. So if we understand that, go ahead, Sullivan. Yeah.
Now, protecting muscle and bone on a GLP-1 is highly important. How can we do it?
Well, so let's think of this. So if that's what these hormones do, then theoretically taking these hormones as hormone replacement therapy, which is what the semaglutide, tirzepatide, retatrutide, what they are, should be helpful. Now, the distinction is that our own stay on for 2 to 5 minutes, and these medications stay on for 24 hours or 7 times 24 hours, in terms of a week. So we do have to acknowledge that in working so exponentially intensely, imagine if you left a light on in your house for 2 to 5 minutes, 6 times in the day, versus if you left a light on for 7 days ongoing. You'd have a very different energy bill, right? So we have to acknowledge that in the body. But when we look at muscle loss, bone health, hair loss, digestion, all of these things, if we're using the medication correctly as a hormone optimizing tool for weight health, we should actually see the advantages of that, because that's what those hormones do. When we see challenges to muscle loss or we see challenges to bone health or other things, it's because we're leaning into weight loss and we haven't nutrient optimized, or we haven't optimized digestion, or we haven't figured out how to use that, better for that person.
What about someone who isn't obese or diabetic? What should they do? Should diet and exercise be part of what they should be doing?
So I use the analogy of a pizza. We all, to be optimally healthy, start out with a crust, and the crust is digestion and hydration. We all need those to be optimal. If those are suboptimal, I don't care what food you're consuming or what supplements you're consuming, they're not going to get where they're supposed to go and be used how they're supposed to be used, and toxins aren't going to get eliminated. So if your crust isn't better, that's where we all need to focus. And that is not something that a GLP-1 agonist medication does. And in fact, it can exacerbate any underlying dysfunction. And then we get to your sauce, and your sauce is better nutrition. It's your better total nutrition. Food and supplements, the quantity, the quality, the timing of them, and the balance Those should give your body what it needs, when it needs it, in forms it can use, and then the body says, oh, I have optimal levels, not those really dumb amounts, those RDAs, that are like suboptimal, on that part. And then we have the Qs, which are our lifestyle choices. And so things like stress and activity and joy and breathing and sleep, they're going to be part of the solution, but they can also be part of what the problem is. So when somebody is noticing that they are gaining fat, maybe they're noticing they're losing muscle, or maybe they're noticing that they have bone loss, any of these things, what we want to do is we want to come back and assess the body to figure out which of these things are not working better and also protect the ones that already are. The way we use a GLP-1 agonist is it's a topping. It's like some people like ham on their or pineapple on their pizza. Some people like pepperoni. I like mushrooms and spinach and grilled onions, like whatever it is, right? And we find what's delicious for your body in the moment. But if we're going to use a GLP-1 agonist, we have to make sure that your crust is already working, or we make sure that the agonist doesn't hurt your crust. And then we optimize your total nutrition, your sauce, and your cheese around what the agonist is doing to the body. So as an example, when you're using a GLP-1 agonist, it actually keeps you metabolically active while it's active in your body, which means you're not getting as much rest and digest, which can actually affect your stress hormones. It can actually affect your heart rate variability, your breathing, and even your sleep. So I have to look at those things. We can optimize around it, but if I don't look at and optimize it, then I'm going to be missing a really important part of the picture.
So using your pizza analogy, you really have to watch, we really need to watch what we eat and determine what's the right amount of protein, fiber, carbs, water that we should put into our bodies daily.
After we make sure that the body can break them down and use it. So as an example, sometimes I'll say to someone, it isn't actually the protein you were eating. This is a great question. I have a guy great example. I have a patient who, after working out, he really intense strength training. After strength training, he was eating like steak or a burger. He's like, okay, I'm like really going to get in good amount of protein. The problem was the intensity of his workout really put his body into a stressed out state. When your body is in a stressed out state, it actually diverts attention away from digestion. So he was feeling really bloated. He was actually gaining belly weight and not building muscle. And part of it was we weren't breaking down that big meal that he was having after working out. So we leaned in instead into we had him do smoothies where we got the same amount of protein in there. We actually got some carbs in there, et cetera. But in the liquid form, when his body was stressed out, we actually were able to have him absorb it. We also, after his workout, really implemented a very significant, it was efficient, but a very significant cool down. So he didn't put anything in his body until I saw his heart rate and also his heart rate coming down, so that I knew that we were in more of a recovery state. Yeah.
The retail product world has seemed to have gone protein crazy. It seems like every other product on a store shelf, it's added protein. Your thoughts about that?
Yeah, well, you and I have been at this for quite a long time. So for me, I think my first Expo West natural products, was I think it was 21 or 22 years ago. So I've seen every time I go there, and I always think the natural products industry is like a little bit ahead of like where, things will be more mainstream. And I've seen everything, right? So we've seen like higher carb and no fat, or we've seen like really hit on, protein, or we've seen really like high, amounts of fats in there, like in the whole keto era, and that kind of thing. So we're in the protein moment. I think it's because the pendulum swung too far away from us getting in enough protein, and the recommendations were lower. And we also started to be able to track and be aware of how important muscle is. I have colleagues who so brilliantly have leaned into helping us understand that muscle medicine is like an understanding our muscle is so much more than just nice biceps, like our digestive tract is a muscle, right? So you gotta look at that. So I think what's happened is we've leaned into that piece. However, the quality of protein is going to dictate the quality of your hormones, the quality of your enzymes, whether or not your body can break it down and use it, easily. And we do have a cap on individually if we have too much protein at any one time, the body isn't going to be able to break down and use it. And so that can increase blood sugar, it can also increase fat storage. So instead of a total amount of grams of protein in the day, I really look at having you pit stop about every 3 hours. And in that time period, look at almost all adults should be a minimum of 15 grams of protein. And then, depending on your health, your digestion, your movement, like what time of day, maybe 30, 40 grams, maybe even 50 grams, but also a diversity of sources and really looking at, as we talked about a moment ago, the form being able to be used by the body.
Last question, what do you see about supplements, dietary supplements playing a role in weight management, or do you?
Yeah, I think they're wonderful, but I also think they're misused. So when we look at your nutrition, that sauce, right? And we're thinking about how do we give the body what it needs to run optimally. There are three reasons for supplements. One, we can use them to address any identifiable gap. So I might do testing, I might have, be aware after I've assessed the rest of your nutrition, I'm like, oh, you're just not getting this in and your body really needs it, or you're not able in your food to get us to a high enough level, or there's a time of day where I'd rather you weren't eating and I want you to get in a nutrient. The second one would be that if I change how you're eating, or I change how you're exercising or anything else, we may want to prevent a gap. So I might use supplements there. And the third reason would be something I call therapeutic use, where we're really using them more like a medication, more like a treatment and that kind of thing. So that's going to be personalized. And what I would say in weight health is they can be so valuable for really helping us achieve optimal levels, but they can also really be the problem. So as an example, if I'm getting in more calcium or more iron to address a perceived or even a identified deficiency or insufficiency, I might not be able to get in enough magnesium, right? And so they could be working at cross purposes. Or I could be taking a supplement. This happened recently. I had a patient who said, oh, I am not going on a statin. I am not using, I don't want to lower my cholesterol. I don't want to use that pharmaceutical. But they were taking red yeast rice. Well, red yeast rice is natural statin. It's the form, the statin was identified from. So they were really suboptimal in terms of CoQ10 and they were having muscle pain and they kept increasing their electrolytes because somebody told them that the pain in their legs was electrolyte, that they were dehydrated. Well, they ended up getting in way too much sodium and their blood pressure was off. So they almost were being put on a blood pressure medication before seeing me. And the root cause was the initial supplement that they were taking was actually causing this reduction in CoQ10 and we needed to optimize there. So what I would take from this is you're not meant to know all of this. I am. That's what I'm supposed to do as a practitioner. And it does really make sense to have you personalize a total nutrition recommendation and then update it. Like I eat differently when I'm in training versus when I'm not in training, or maybe seasonally. And so I shift my supplements. And then I always come back to the data, not just my labs, but also like what my body is telling me. And that's going to give me insights about, where I might want to invest with supplements on that part.
Ashley, good luck with your book and thank you for sharing your healthy weight insights on Healthy Bites.
Thank you, Sheldon, and thank you, Healthy Bites.
You bet, and thank you for watching Healthy Bites.